morning. I wanted to come to you live, but it just wasn't going to happen today. What we're looking at is this is a series of stones that we found just over here. It would be south of the colony. If you come over the ditch and you go through the development here, and then there's a flat area in the back of the old field. Well, this is where this came from. These are old working stones that people use. This is just some of them. Note the peculiar ones. This one's a wedge. The hand smooth. You see, I'm trying not to touch it too much. It's still shiny. I didn't clean that off other than to dust it. So when it's shiny like that, that's people's body oil still in there, impregnated into that stone. Usually baked in from the heat over however long it's been in. Chunks of a basalt, the edge of a bowl, another working wedge that was hit by a machine. You see, it got whacked right there. A few of these small, smoother stones that are just flaked off of a larger, smooth stone. I don't know where the rest of that stone went. A few of these personal stones. You see some of these also in the workings. This was actually you would find one like this. It would look sometimes like this, but they're round and they're really holy and porous. Oh, here we go. There's another edge of a hole or something. Grinders. This was in the dirt. There's no way that this was put there in any contemporary terms. So we have all these stones here, edges of working stones. You know, another beginning of a wedge. You can see that's how some of these wedges started. They would get down to, it was easier to chip through all these bubbles to get down to the solid stone. You see where it gets to the solid is where they start to stop. That's a dimple right there. That's somebody's finger mark of their making. Always wash your hands after you touch these things. Always, medicine, however you medicine. This one's still smooth. You can see it shining in the light. The reason why I brought these to you really quick was, and to not get too deep and too in depth, talking about the Weasel Trail. Some people might not know what we're talking about and why the weasel was prolific here. So let's just get into that really quick, the physics of a weasel. Now, every now and then you'll find dead chickens or dead animals, and they're dead in the way that a weasel would kill them, because every now and then they migrate in, the way you see moose or bears come down. But the weasel was prolific here because we lived in the time of the cold water. There was high timbers on our mountains in some spots, and other places it was rocky. And then as it got lower and it got warmer, those high timbers disappeared. Not because we destroyed them, but because it was their time. Everything was drying out and getting warm. And as it got down, we witnessed the absolute climate change from the ice all the way down. Maybe even before, if we found out different scientifically. So as that happened, different animals would stay. And the weasel stayed a really long time. Like I said, they come back every now and then when it's really cold, and they can hibernate out in the mountains. They could still be out there. But where the Weasel Trail starts, if you've seen the videos, it's in a really low, desolate, dry spot in the mountain. A long time ago, not as long as you might think, the marsh went right up to it. The old marsh you can see is a big white strip that goes back behind Hidden Cave, Grimes Point area on the northeast side of it. That's where the old marsh came up. Water would feed down through there and kind of go back and forth between that upper white spot in the mountain and then down here in the marsh. So there was a water exchange between there somewhere, and the people started a trail from there, and then went all the way up to Grimes Point. So when that wind blows, and now you see it because people have been using it, not in the way they should be, but at least they're still using it. Now when that wind blows, that Weasel Trail starts because you see it blow off the mountain and hit the places where people have walked. And now that the cattle and stuff haven't been back there in a really long time, it's kind of settling back into that natural way, into the features where we would see the mountain and know where to walk. And people walk on there. They follow that trail out, and they hit that dusty spot, and they go. So the weasel itself physically lived for a long time where that Weasel Trail was. Whether they used the medicine, that's what they said, that weasel would go in there and roll, and it'd come out for the winter, and then he'd be all white, and you couldn't see him. He'd hide. So that would be his little spot. come out, roll around in that white stuff, and then take off for the winter. And sometimes he would do that early if the season would change. He'd do that early. If he saw that weasel doing that early, he knew it was already getting cold and he needed to hide. So he would go in there and roll around in that weasel trail, dust, and then come back out so that he could hide early because the early winter was coming. But then there's also the metaphysical of when you take off in your place, that when he was sent down, that's where that weasel started and opened up that thing so that we could share his medicine when he turned winter. It's a lot of information for almost a 6-minute video, but I didn't want to clog up too much. Maybe what I'll do is I'll post it on my YouTube for the Stillwater Pike decoys. It doesn't put a lot of information out that we don't need to share publicly, but it puts out enough that you get this kind of a tone of, you understand why people would put a metaphysical tone to something that we witness animals doing. We witness that animal do that thing and attach those metaphysical waypoints so that we could have our own understanding of things outside of what the common culture could ever comprehend, without knowing where that weasel trail comes from and what that dust significance is. So that's the physical tone of when that dust, those animals bring that dust. Every time they come down from the metaphysical weasel trail in the Milky Way, they bring that medicine down and touch it down in that white dust so that we can get it too. So if that's any type of explanation you might need, or you need further, let me know. We can go out, not necessarily on location, but I hit the hill from Toiticutta. I can give you directions and show you where stuff is at in that, I guess, traditional way. So that's it. Konnichiwa.